Yeah, so this video right here, man, I ain't gonna say too much on, but the government, the U.S. government is unleashing fury upon the Mexican cartel. It's enough with the fentanyl. Shit ain't no drug, it's a weapon. Government's finally realizing that's a weapon, declaring as such, and what they're doing is they're putting the Mexican cartel now is categorizing them as terrorists. Terrorist organizations, same as Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and such. So it's going to be a game changer because now they're going to deal with that issue a lot different. A lot of Americans have died off that drug more than 9/11, Vietnam, and other wars we've been into. So this right here is based off of that. I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to let the video speak for itself because it's valid information.
Opioid painkiller has ravaged the United States, and Mexican drug cartels now see huge profits and an addicted market for the drug. With the support of the Pulitzer Center from Sinaloa State in Mexico, special correspondent Monica Villamizar and videographer Zach Fannin report.
A handful of dirt is thrown into the wind to gauge the way it's blowing. It's important work because one gust in the wrong direction and any mistake in this delicate process could lead to death.
Your life is at stake. An experienced cook knows to look at the direction of the wind and to turn around when the wind turns, and he knows that this is vital. There are people who get sick. This process starts very toxic, but the toxicity fades. An expert knows towards the end you can get close to the pot. If the toxicity was high at that point, you could not even get near to empty the pot. That is when the black goat is made.
Heroin is usually called black goat, but these drug makers are not using poppy plants as the raw materials. Instead, they start with this synthetic powder, which is cooked over an open flame.
Getting all caffeinated up here.
Sinaloa cartels.
So, thank you. I've just been on the phone with family members of those South Carolinians that were kidnapped, tortured, and survived, and those that were killed, we believe, by Mexican drug cartels. So I'm joined here today with Senator Kennedy just to make a statement. Drug cartels in Mexico have been terrorizing Americans for decades. We're going to unleash the fury and might of the United States against these cartels. We're going to destroy their business model and their lifestyle because our national security and the security of the United States as a whole depends on us taking decisive action. I have a two-step approach to this, but first I want to just say we've been talking about doing something against the Mexican drug cartels regarding foreign terrorist organization designation for a decade, since 2012. Senator Kennedy and I are going to join forces. We believe Democrats will be involved to label these organizations as foreign terrorist organizations under U.S. law. That's the top of the food chain. An FTO designation is the highest designation you can give a criminal terrorist enterprise that's not a nation state. What would it mean? It means that all the precursors coming from China, Chinese chemical companies and Chinese enterprises.
Oh boy, they thought it was sweet. It ain't sweet. Let me tell you something. When Bill Clinton and Biden, as a senator, whipped up the war on drugs back in the 90s on brothers and sisters in America, man, they put a lot of us away. A lot of our people was affected by that. So they're really not playing with that.
Would be subject to being prosecuted under U.S. law for providing material support to foreign terrorist organizations, something you can't do today. So we're going to open up the prosecution lane. But I'm a firm believer that the prosecution model as it exists today is not working. So what are we going to do? We're going to up the ante. We're going to designate these groups and others, if appropriate, foreign terrorist organizations under U.S. law, changing the game for those who provide assistance to them. What drives this is fentanyl. It's been a game changer. More people died in the United States from fentanyl poisoning than car wrecks and gun violence combined. Fentanyl is becoming the leading cause of death for Americans ages 18 to 45. 200 Americans die every day due to fentanyl overdoses. Fentanyl overdoses cause the equivalent of a new September 11th every 2 weeks. I think John and I believe that if there were an ISIS or Al Qaeda cell in Mexico that lobbed a rocket into Texas, we'd wipe them off the planet. They're doing that times thousands, and our response is inadequate. 106,000 people last year died of drug overdoses, 70,000 related to fentanyl with no end in sight. We've recovered over 12,000 pounds of fentanyl at the border this year, enough to kill almost 3 billion people. Last year's 14,700 pounds. This year is almost 13,000 pounds, and we got 8 months to go. This problem is a national security threat. Fentanyl is a killer, and the people killing Americans reside out in the open in Mexico. Now, I don't know if it's a lack of will on behalf of the Mexican government to bring these cartels to bay or a lack of capability. Either way, it's the same result in the United States. Chaos, heartache, terrorism, murder, and it needs to come to an end. So we're going to do 2 things today. We're going to introduce legislation in the coming days and trying to make it bipartisan to designate these groups foreign terrorist organizations under U.S. law and open up.
The Mexican cartel higher than they put the brothers in the 90s that was running the war on drugs in the streets is what they called it. Whole different ball game. It's definitely a game changer.